The planet's fucked, it's your fault, and it's getting worse. Let's do nothing and see if it helps. Millions ready to starve to death for our entertainment in Africa, but who gives a fuck about that? In the UK, David Cameron says spying on people is the government's job and not the news of the world. Hello, wanton fools. Welcome to the fucking news. I'm a witness for the prosecution. Here are the headlines tonight. So, I'm here in New York and I've been chatting to some scientists about climate change. Like, you know, I used to be a firm believer in the conspiracy that the government were lying about CO2 and the acidity of the oceans, melting ice caps and so on, but meeting these experts and looking at the CO2 data, the overfishing, deforestation, I don't know. I no longer believe that climate change, the destruction of our ecosphere, have nothing to do with humans. Well, in reality, it's much more likely that billions of humans, spurred on by a few wealthy bankers, conspired to poison, pollute, exploit, consume and destroy our world. They did this not because of some great crisis that required a massive industrial effort to make shit we don't need. Nope, they did it for money. They did it to make a few people even more wealthy. It's that simple. Here's a fucking news report about it. Earth's climate has been stable for thousands of years, but industrial civilization changed everything. In 1750, atmospheric levels of CO2 were estimated to be 280 parts per million. In 1960, they were 360 parts per million. In May 2011, they reached 394 parts per million. The oceans of Earth are becoming acidic at 10 times the rate preceding the last mass extinction tens of millions of years ago. Arctic sea ice has been declining and scientists have confirmed that Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets are losing mass at an accelerating rate. There are many who have read the warning signs, but we call them shills and COINTEL agents. People don't want to believe they are the stupid fuckers who ruined the planet. Like a lot of people, I used to believe that humans could never take down our oceans and forests with just a vast industrial effort over 270 years. But sitting here on the internet, reading the latest figures from many top PhD scientists, I'm not so sure. Dying coral reefs, biodiversity ravaged, open water dead zones, toxic algae blooms, massive depletion of fish stocks. It really does look like we're eating our legs and asking for sauce. All 5 mass extinctions of life on the planet, reaching back more than 500 million years, were preceded by many of the same conditions. We have built up, then destroyed cities, cut deep into mountains, hauled out coal and metals, cut down rainforests and created new wastelands, dammed great rivers, ruined wetland ecosystems, drilled dry deserts and contracted armies to protect pipelines, mindlessly disgorged our accumulated wastes into the air, the earth and the sea without regard for anything but our own benefit. We have no philosophical or ethical system in place that would urge sensitivity, caution or restraint. We do have moral distaste for suicide, homicide and genocide, but not apparently for biocide. So, yeah, hate me, slate me, tell me the government are lying scum and they just want another excuse to tax us. Tell me it's the solar wind, natural cycles, Comet Elenin, whatever else may be or is happening, our part is undeniable. The planet's fucked. It's your fault. And it's getting worse.
There seems so much for us in this world to do. All things bright and shiny for us to use. Sometimes I'm so confused by the choice. Don't know what is right or wrong, I have no voice. Used to be easier than that. When we didn't have no language to throw back, we used to be drones. We used to be drones. And it was very, 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 very much more fun. than being in a 9 to 5 with a car to drive and a wife to drive. Then things went wrong, they needed more defined. Had to know high from low to get into a good time. They had to know what was 8/16, 30 seconds too. They had the legal language so they could get down onto that, you know. Now and people are digging up the places, there's people there who want to know about the other races. Who'll be young amateur anthropologists will say, this is the site of some old-time groovy good time days. This is where people came in circles round the fire. Didn't say much at all, couldn't get much higher, beating on a drum, beating on a drum.
And now, for this week's Peak at Peak, we're joined by our resident biped berater, Lone Wolf.
Well, greetings, malevolent misery monkeys. This week I've been asked to introduce peak oil. Peak facts about peak oil. Well, peak oil is peak energy. It's peak food, manufacturing, mobility, plastics, resource extraction, transport, peak fucking everything. Peak oil is the point of maximum oil production followed by a terminal decline. Discovery of new oil fields occurred 40 years ago. Globally, peak conventional crude extraction occurred in 2006. Significant amounts of National Oil Company data are kept unavailable, obscuring the true situation. Increasing energy is expended in finding, developing, extracting, and refining oil, further reducing net energy availability. Most oil-producing fields and nations have already peak extracted, peak gonzoed, including Texas tea, Cali crude, North Slope goo, the North Sea, Indonesia, Iran, Mexico, Russia, on and on. It's a long list, growing longer. Then add in Saudi Arabia, where peaked Learjets will transition to peaking camels in a peak stinking desert. Peak oil is especially peak food, not to mention peak conflict. Industrial agriculture is oil. Oil is used for everything, from mining the metals, from manufacturing the equipment to fueling them, for the fertilizers, the herbicides, the pesticides. Every fucking aspect requires oil. Cheap oil. Food is oil, and you are food. Hence, you are crude. Therefore, peak oil is peak y'all. No freaking combination of any alternative energy is going to maintain the peak fucking fairy tale. Oil is everything that you have, that you know, that you expect, use, and want. And your peak teat is going peak fucking dry. Bye-bye, teat sucklers. Just peak fucking Google it, you peak follically challenged chimps.
As famine hits Africa again, millions of people are ready to die, but due to a severe shortage of journalists, we may not get to watch. Our brown person correspondent has this.
The worst drought in the region for 6 decades has withered crops and killed livestock. Yes, this year's drought has hit hard, but many people have not even seen the dead from the last drought in 2009. On top of this, the cost of helicopters ferrying journalists into Africa is higher than at any time since the price crisis of 3 years ago. A deeply alarming combination of factors has resulted in very few starving or dead or dying brown children appearing on our TVs or in the media at all. There have been many pledges over the years that coverage of dying brown people would be a priority, and lessons have been learnt from the crisis of the past. In Ethiopia, there is now a famine safety net scheme assisting news organisations to film chronic food shortages and the dying brown people. However, for many of the 150 million who die every year, it's too little, too late. Viewers at home may be wondering, if brown people die in the desert with no one to film them, are they really dead at all? And why the fuck should we care? Ha ha ha.
The 9/11 Truth Movement is a global call for awareness. FKN Newz spoke to Jim Core from Ireland about his part in the cause.
Hi, my name is Jim Core. I'm a member of the band The Cores, and spent about 15 years working, building up the whole band, and then when we come off the road, I started researching this, I suppose, alternative information, especially in relation to 9/11, and through a slow process, I eventually woke up to what is going on, and I'm still learning, I'm still researching as much as I can to find out what it is exactly that is going on. Because I now understand that the mainstream media is kind of giving a narrative like a movie, which is certainly in relation to news, the news that we are getting, that there's a very different reality behind that movie that is presented to us via the television set. So when I started learning about some of this information, I decided to go public with it. I thought it was very important to get out there and not just seek the truth, but to share the truth with as many other people as possible, and that's what I've been doing. Yeah, I committed to doing a couple of talks with the guys from the Sovereign Independent newspaper, and I've participated in their organised events before, which have been great. This time we did some events with Dr. Andrew Wakefield and with Richard Gage, the architect of 23 years. And it was great for me to come on and not just share my views, but to have somebody of the calibre of Richard Gage, an architect who's able to back up what I and many others have been saying in relation to 9/11, and he backs it up with science and with physics and with chemistry, so that's wonderful. I think it has been going really, really well in terms of the awakening that is occurring across the globe. There was a recent poll done in Germany where people were asked whether they believed the official story of 9/11, and I believe it was 92% said that they didn't. We've had recently over 50% of New Yorkers have said that they would support a new investigation into the collapse of World Trade Center 7. Of course, many people are waking up to the fact that 3 buildings came down that day, including World Trade Center 7, which collapsed neatly into its own footprint at practically free fall speed, and no plane hit it. So lots of questions to be answered there. I believe that 9/11 is the nexus doorway into the bigger picture. I think that it's possibly easiest of all the so-called theories out there. It's the easiest for people to grasp, because when you start looking at the inconsistencies, the irregularities, it paints a very different picture to what we're told by what we're being told by the media and the governments. So, and I believe that 9/11 could end up being one of the biggest mistakes that the elite have made, because so many people have woken up. It depends on the jurisdictions. I mean, we've had in Russia, they showed a documentary called, I believe it was Zero, 9/11 documentary called Zero, and that woke up millions of people across Russia. I only wish that our own media would approach, in Ireland, would approach 9/11 the same way that other countries are doing. Unfortunately, they're not. I did get on to the state broadcaster asking them if they would show a particular movie. It was Loose Change, and they said they would show it, but they never did. And it's a pity that. But thankfully, with the advent of the internet and the free flow of information now, there are millions and millions of people waking up.
And finally, in the UK, David Cameron has promised to set up a public inquiry into phone hacking by the News of the World. News Corporation Chief Rupert Murdoch said the allegations were deplorable and unacceptable, going on not to say,
"These allegations are unacceptable and will be fully covered up as soon as possible. I will sack as many people as I have to in order to pretend I've dealt with it. These allegations besmirch the good name of muck-digging sensational journalism in my newspapers, and I won't rest until you stop talking about it. I stand by my Chief Executive Rebecca Brooks, and I will continue to try and look down her blouse while she works for me until she gets caught."
David Cameron has promised Parliament that he will do everything he can to protect the government's monopoly on spying on its own people. Not saying,
"Listening to people's phone calls, reading their emails, looking at their bank, medical and internet records is a job for thousands of low-ranking civil servants in dozens of government and council departments all over the country, as enshrined in the laws we passed allowing us to do so. The idea that journalists can invade your privacy by even a fraction of that is deplorable. I, for one, support a privacy law giving rich people and the officials who spy on you protection from having their hypocrisy exposed in any way at all. That way, we will know all about the peasant scum and nothing we do will ever be reported again."
thanks, and now the weather. Minor discomfort over press intrusion in the UK, while in Africa, dead brown people barely making it to our screens. And the outlook for Earth, well, mass extinction of many species followed by a return to pre-human conditions in about 50 million years. Have a nice weekend!